Hey, what's going on, guys? How's it going? Hope you're doing well. Tonight is kind of a special night for me because I've been waiting for East 10 Nordics for, my god, it feels like forever now. This is actually the first game I've ever pre-ordered, so when the game finally came in last month, my god, I was so stoked, dude. I mean, check out all this shit you get in here. Hardcover manual, a soundtrack, even get these postcards, which, I don't think I'd ever use them, but they look pretty nice. The trailers for this game were pretty awesome looking. I was excited to see what they were going to add this time around. Looked like they added a new combat system, a ship, wow, and of course, a whole new jammin' soundtrack and story. Could this finally be the East game to take the crown from Lacrimosa of Donna as the best one? Well, let's put it in my PS4 and see how it turned out. So usually I have to put a disclaimer in these videos that there aren't going to be spoilers until the end, but since this game is still pretty new, I'm just not going to spoil anything past the first hour of the game. Despite being the 10th entry in this series, chronologically this is Adol's second adventure. It takes place right after the events of East 1 and 2 and Memories of Salsetta. So Adol, Dogi, and Dr. Flare from East 2, kinda forgot about this guy to be honest, they're sailing towards Salsetta for the next adventure. But on the way there, the ship is raided by a bunch of Normans, and the captain of the ship gets his head chopped off. God damn. Adol and the gang are forced to settle in the town of Karnak for a while, that is, until they can find a way to continue with their journey. It's here in Karnak where the events of East 10 begin to play out, and Adol finds a partner to help him out on this journey. Her name is Karja, the princess of the band of Normans that raided your ship from earlier. She has a brief squabble with our boy Adol. They decide to call in a truce, but they're kind of unable to part ways as a mysterious pair of handcuffs binds them together. So they're forced to stick together until they find a way out of their predicament. Without spoiling anything, East 10 has a pretty good story. I think it knows what people want, or, well, at least what I want, a fun adventure with equally fun characters. It inspired my curiosity, it immersed me in the world, and I actually cared about what was going to happen next. And that's the kind of stuff I like to see from my East stories. I gotta say, I really like the mythology behind this game's locale, Obelia Gulf. East games sometimes share vague familiarities with our own world, and 10 takes very light inspiration from Norse culture, but kind of makes up a completely new mythology behind it. You can read bits and pieces of Obelia Gulf's past written on these runestones, which I think makes this locale just that more interesting. Another thing that stood out to me were actually the side characters this time around, in this case being the crew of your ship. These are the best secondary characters in the series, in my humble opinion. There are only 2 primary protagonists this time around, instead of the usual 6, so there's a lot of extra time to kill giving character development to the crew. I liked almost everyone. There were a couple characters that I occasionally wish would shut up. This guy named Gren, especially, was just way too chatty for me, but most of the characters were good. There's this kid named Ashley who started out pretty annoying, but he grew on me over time, and I found myself enjoying finding new marine life for him to check out. Some of the characters just had fun personalities, even if the development was shallow. Mirabelle and Joel were just fun to hang around. There's this dude named Father Corbert, who's an absolute badass. He just joins the crew to chill out and learn about history. One thing that did bug me a tad about the story is that there's too much forced humor in here. It didn't land most of the time. I guess, it's sometimes charming, but just way too much. Tonally, this is a more light-hearted adventure than East 8 or East 9. Adol is more chirpy and higher energy in his younger years, and It's actually kind of fun to see the subtle contrast between him in this game and his more seasoned adventurer personality in East 9. And I think a simpler, lower stakes narrative fits best for Adol's second adventure. I really enjoyed Karja as a secondary protagonist. I think she brought quite a lot of personality as captain of the Sandras, and of course as Adol's partner too. She's also not afraid to get angry and take some shots at our boy here, who responds in his typical fashion. I said back there that you have a ship and a crew, and that leads us into our first big change in the gameplay side of East 10. A decent chunk of the exploring this time around is done by sailing aboard the Sandras. You'll find all sorts of stuff out here in the Gulf. Sea life, spots to fish, sunken treasure, or the occasional merchant ship, although you gotta watch out for the fake ones. You'll also discover many islands where you can disembark and take your adventure on foot. You better watch out though, as some of these islands have been taken over by the enemy, and you'll have to engage in naval combat to take them back. And yeah, you heard me right. East 10 features ship combat. It's mostly self-explanatory. You just fire projectiles and you'll upgrade your ship in all sorts of different ways, speed, HP, that kind of jazz, make new weapons. And this all sounds nice and dandy, but holy crap, it becomes very mindless after a little while. My winning strategy was just mashing all of my special projectiles all at once, and trust me, you'll find success doing this. A little later in the game, you'll pick up a shield that will make you invulnerable to all damage for a lengthy period of time, which can also be upgraded to last even longer. I don't even need to explain why that's overpowered. I'll be honest, the ship combat grew on me just a little bit more once I got the Sandras laser, just because it is such a satisfying attack to use. But that's the extent of most of my fun. I mean, this was a novel idea, it just wasn't executed very well. If it was polished up a bit, then, it probably would be perfectly fine, but unfortunately we probably won't see this come back. What is fortunate is that it doesn't take up much time out of the main attraction, that being when you go on foot. First of all, East 10 adds some new movement options using mana, the special power you receive in this game. Mana String allows you to swing across large gaps or to close the distance on enemies. There's a hoverboard that'll send you flying at breakneck speeds going downhill, or you can use it to travel long distances on rails. You even get some wall hacks here. That's kinda cool. You can track down buried treasure with it. There is a lot of backtracking to search for missed treasure, so these options make it a lot more speedy than previous games. A welcome addition in my eyes. The way combat worked in the last two games is quite simple. You had a large party of 6 people, each with a different set of skills and attack type. If you were good, you could do a perfectly timed flash dodge or a flash guard parry. Most of this was changed quite considerably here in 10. Now there are only 2 characters focused more on team synergy and working together. Attack types have been changed significantly as well. There's an enemy's standard life bar, which is affected by your strength, but some foes also have a defensive bar that must be destroyed by your break stat. The flash guard has been changed to a full-on guard button that you can hold down. This guard button also acts as a duo mode that has Adol and Karja link up to do some pretty cool shit, such as attacking simultaneously or being able to use a duo skill that does really high damage. Damage which can also be multiplied by the revenge gauge. By blocking attacks, it'll fill up and add to the multiplier. You won't be able to rely on the guard button though, as some heavy attacks will break it, leaving you open momentarily. Some attacks also cannot be blocked at all, and you'll have to evade through it by holding down the dodge button. I really enjoyed the new combat system in East 10. It's quite fast-paced as usual and far more customizable than previous entries. You can tamper with different character builds by using these mana seeds, and they come in all sorts of different types that'll focus on one different statistic. There are multiple slots for these seeds, and ones of the same type can be stacked to give your character extra bonuses. Anyway, I made Adol an absolute HP shredding machine. Low stats for everything else, but his strength more than made up for it. On the contrary, I made Karja a more balanced character with a higher break stat. Later in the game, it got to the point where I had to tone down my build with Adol because it highlighted just how busted East 10 can become with the right setups and strategies. It's not just the mana seeds that can add hundreds of points in strength, but also accessories that improve skill damage of upwards of 80%, damage affliction plus 50%, items that may be balanced by themselves, but when added up are just way too strong. Just look at this life bar paper shredder fucking Adol Christins here, my god, man. But if you want to see overpowered, then go no further than that of the skill system. Now, skills have been a thing in East games for a while. It's very simple. You charge up an SP meter, and if you build enough of this meter, you perform a skill of varying degrees of power. It's a balanced system, so how did they make it so broken in 10? Well, first of all, running out of SP is almost a non-issue. Not only can you double your SP by the end of the game, SP also just recharges by existing. It gets worse though. Adol and Karja also have separate SP bars. When you switch, you can burn out a second SP meter, and the reserve character will have their meter charge much faster than if you were using them. So I don't need to really explain this. You burn meter, you switch characters, you burn their meter, switch again, and have another full meter. It's spam galore. Spam, spam, more spam! Just keep spamming. Just go absolutely crazy, and that's what I did. Just fucking spam skills over and over again. The cherry. No, not even the cherry. The fucking ice cream that forms the base of this entire busted sundae is that during a skill animation, you take just a fraction of incoming damage you would receive normally. So during your spam galore of skills, you'll receive basically extended periods of time where you're just nearly invincible. I gotta knock East 10 here because it's definitely the most unbalanced East game I've played to date. I won't pretend it's not fun because it is. I like going crazy with Karja spinning ice hammers, or a hyperactive Adol flying around the screen slashing his sword 100 times per second, and I can't forget to mention how satisfying it is to build up the revenge gauge and then unleash an attack that just destroys 20% of a boss's life bar. It's the most stylish East game for sure. You do a perfect guard on a boss and get this really hype cutscene that ends with the freaking boss just exploding. It's got its own spin on the formula. It's familiar, but different. I do slightly prefer how things were before, but I gotta appreciate them mixing things up here. It was a breath of fresh air that'll probably be polished up quite a lot in East 11. Anyway, before we conclude this video, we gotta take a listen to the soundtrack. Of course, I loved it. Obviously, East soundtracks are gonna kick ass, so let's sample a couple of the songs. By the time the credits rolled, I was very much satisfied with my 60-hour journey in Obelia Gulf. Solid story, characters, the adventuring, and the discovery had me hooked, per usual. It's a welcome entry into the series. And I'm just happy that this series has continued to stay awesome throughout the years. Now, we are ending off the East Marathon here. It's kind of a shame. I wanted to cover the rest of them, but we'll do that again some other day. But for the time being, let me show you my current ranking, and we'll see where East 10 fits in. Number 1 for me is still 100% East 8, Lacrimosa of Donna. Great gameplay, excellent exploration, the best mystery and intrigue. It has my favorite soundtrack, my favorite story, and of course Donna is one of the best one-off characters in the series. Probably just my favorite character in the series in general, to be honest. Ys, the Oath in Felghana is next. This is a true champions game right here. It's tough as nails on the hardest difficulties. It's simple, straight to the point gameplay, the best boss battles in the series by far for me, and a pretty well-written story. I said this could take over E7 one day, and I think by the slightest margin, it does. And that brings us over to E7 in 3rd place. I love the speedy dashes and the crazy intense boss fights in this one. It has the series' best villain, and the most prominent role of one of my favorite Ys characters, my man Dogi. And, of course, it's the only time that he's playable. I mean, what the hell, guys? We need more playable Dogi. Ys 10 is going to receive 4th place. I really like the complexity of the gameplay and the synergy between the two characters. The cast of the Sandras were the most interesting side characters in the series. And as another note, I think the side content is probably the best as well. There's a ton to do outside of the main quest. It's a fun Pirate Ys game. It's like Pirate Ys. It's a cool idea, it's great. I'm going to give this game an 8.4 out of 10. Following right behind is Ys 1 and 2 Chronicles. The adventuring and the atmosphere was probably the most fun in the series for me. It's very fast-paced, which I very much enjoyed, and the soundtrack is one of the best, right behind Ys 8. I love this game's soundtrack. And the last thing I want to mention is that there's a ton of great lore in this game. Lore that is connected to multiple Ys games, so it's probably the most important game in the series. Ys 6 is unfortunately last place. It's still a pretty dang good game, but I think the trial and error brings it down a little bit for me. I did, however, really enjoy the 3-sword system and the Canaan Islands as a locale. And that completes the current ranking. I'm really glad that Ys 10 lived up to the hype. It was fantastic. It has its flaws, but I didn't really mind them too much. It was still a blast, and 100% worth your time. I really recommend picking this game up right now. And that's gonna do it for this video, guys. Really thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time. See you later, guys.